Okay, so it's a bit late, obviously. I was originally intending to do this with some gameplay footage, but I don't have a capture card for 3DS, and I don't have a Wii U, and I have no idea when I'm going to get one, so I'll just do this way. This is basically just going to be my thoughts on Sonic Lost World, and first of all, like everyone else, this is a pretty polarizing title. And it's probably the first one since uh, Unleash that I don't really have, nothing but praise for. Um, there are aspects of the game that I thought they did well. There are aspects that I thought they did pretty poorly, and there are some aspects in between. Um, so I guess first I'll just go over the things I think they did wrong, and I think if they're going to continue down this path, they need to do better. And the first one is really the gameplay. Now, keep in mind, I've only personally played the 3DS version, which is generally regarded as an abysmal piece of shit, from what I can see. I didn't think it was that bad, but the problems are clearly there. Um, and the main issue really is, from a gameplay style perspective, there's nothing inherently wrong with what they've tried to do here. It does reek of experimentation, though. It's very clearly an experimental title to see what works, and in some aspects it did. I think the parkour system is pretty neat. It saved my ass several times from what in previous games would have been certain death. There was nothing I could have done. But at the same time, it's a little finicky, and clearly a first timer probably will have difficulty getting used to it. I did like the return to a sort of more free roaming 3D thing rather than sort of being trapped on a rail. But the speed is gone. Even when you hold down the run button, it's a slower game. It feels slower. The levels are longer. They're drawn out, and not all the levels are good. Um, the first level, Windy Hill, is good. It's your classic Sonic standard level, green, hilly sort of level. But after that, that's where things start to become a bit more of a pain in the ass. And if I could nail it down to one thing, I think it would be the Wisps. I don't think the Wisps really have any sort of place outside of Sonic Colors. I don't like the fact that they're in some sections. This isn't all the time. A lot of the times you can ignore them, but I don't like the fact that in some sections they are mandatory to get past an obstacle. I don't like how they control. I just think they probably shouldn't be there in the first place. I still don't think the control overall is there yet. It still has that sort of jerky, really kind of awkward, weightless Sonic Generations thing. There are times when, in this game, however, different to Generations, Sonic feels too heavy. When you jump, particularly in the 2D sections, when you jump over a pit or over an obstacle, you really feel that drag pulling you back, and it's a real pain in the ass, especially in some of the later levels where, your platforming is really important. If you fuck up, you're going to fall down a pit, etc. I did and didn't like the puzzle aspect, and this is something I guess I'll go into the good side later, but I don't really know if puzzles are the sort of thing that Sonic should be. That should be in a Sonic game. It's not really. It breaks the flow. It feels awkward. It feels odd, and that's pretty much the main criticism I have for this game. It just doesn't feel right. It feels very generic platformer. It feels very Mario, and that's not what I play a Sonic game for. I do respect that they're trying to move away from the Unleashed formula, because that was getting, for me personally, kind of tiresome, but I think they might have gone slightly the wrong way. Now, good things. clearly the game has more average or good things than bad. For one, the presentation is really, really solid. The graphics look nice. Even on the 3DS, the game looks nice. It runs smoothly, and everything's fine with that. The voice acting is good. Of course it is. It has been since Colors. And the humor, the writing, the humor, the snarkiness, all that, it's back from Colors. It was kind of absent from Generations. And that's the thing I'm going to get into. I really like the character interaction in this game. I think that's the highest point of the game. For one, Sonic is possibly the snarkiest and probably even the rudest he's ever been. But aside from a lot of the lines that are downright hilarious, I really like some of the darker aspects of the character development. I like that they showed that Tails has his own conflicts and he has his own character and he doesn't always get along with Sonic. I like that they showed, for once, surprise, surprise, Sonic is not perfect. In fact, pretty much everything that happens in this game is his fault and the direct result of his brash recklessness. And I like the fact that later, as the game progresses, he has to come to terms with the fact that his recklessness is putting the people he cares about in danger. I dig that. I think that was a very good aspect to get, and I think it's an interesting development in his character. Because most of the time he's overly cocky, he's overly full of himself, and he's reckless and pretty stupid. And of course, a lot of you probably have played it, so I'm not going to worry about spoilers. At one point in the game, Tails essentially sacrifices himself to keep Sonic out of a trap set by the Zeddy, which are the Deadly Six, the villains. And essentially, what the villains intend to do is to turn Tails into a robot to fight against Sonic. Now, as Tails of course turns out fine, he reprograms their machine, whatever. But after that, we have a scene where Sonic is really quite distressed and torn up and having some sort of existential crisis over, he's supposed to be the fastest, but he wasn't the fastest, fast enough to save his friend, and his recklessness is putting everyone in danger. And, his recklessness is forcing him to work with his arch enemy. And that's another aspect. I do like the development of Eggman's character. I like that despite the fact that obviously he has the opposite goal with Sonic, he wants to take over the world, etc. But he's not a complete, just evil for the sake of evil. And I guess it's been that way for a while. He's kind of been a goofball, he's a little childish. But this game really shows that he at least has some good qualities. He comforts Sonic basically after Tails is captured, which I thought was really interesting, and I like how angry and just hateful he is towards the Zeddy. Slipknot basically says something along the lines of, "I'm going to eat your black hearts," and that is another thing. There's a lot of kind of dark, morbid lines. There's a lot of talk about death and, dying and destruction and whatever. And in fact, for a good percentage of the game, Sonic's world and his friends on the main world are dead. Okay? Just let that sink in. That was really crazy. And then that started happening, I was starting to worry, is this going to go back to, 06 territory, and it doesn't. It handles it in a far better way, and I think Sonic. One thing that separates Sonic from Mario is they've always been a little bit more willing to tackle darker scenarios. The stakes have always been a bit higher, and that's good. So, all the voice acting is fine. The character development's fine. Everything's, the graphics are fine. Everything is good on the presentation wise. And if I can go back to the puzzle thing just momentarily, I did find it interesting that you sometimes had to stop and think about how to get through a level. And while I don't think they should continue this, at least if they're going to continue using something like this to scale it back a bit and focus more on the, the platforming, the typical Sonic traits, I think it's interesting, nonetheless, and it was a nice change of pace. Uh, but the game is, the game is easy. It's quick. It's pretty good. I would say it's definitely not as good as Colors and Generations in terms of quality. I'd probably put it closer to Sonic Unleashed. So it's definitely not the best one, but I do like that Sega is at least taking some risks again and experimenting, because with Generations that was as far as they could go with the nostalgia thing. Granted, there is a lot of nostalgia in this game, but they're not directly playing it safe and focusing solely on that. And I like that. That's one thing I've always respected about the series, is that even at its lowest point, even when it hit its lowest point, they weren't playing it safe. They were trying things. You know, I look forward to see what Sega comes with next. There's still another title for Nintendo exclusive title to be announced. So here's to seeing what they come up with next. If you haven't played the game, clearly the Wii U is the better option, so I'd recommend picking it up. It's already pretty cheap. It's only been out for a while, but it's cheap enough now. Go and pick it up, play it, see what yourself. See how you feel about it. If you don't like it, whatever. But it's one that I think everyone should at least play. So that's really all I have to say about this. You can discuss it in the comments, like, rate, whatever. Signing out.